One of the great things about sport, in my opinion, is how it works. Coach Pelker teaches Tom Mahoney how to be a man. Tom Mahoney leaves here a man, and when he goes out in his world of work, he teaches others. So that's how it should be. Coach Pelker, I didn't see you sneak in. It's awfully glad to have you here tonight. Good to see you. Okay, I'm going to take you back to the 1950s, a time when television was in its infancy. There was no internet. There was not cell phones. There weren't video games. And a lot of the entertainment was the local sports teams. And at that time, there was nothing greater than basketball in Illinois. Whether it was Centralia High School, where Mickey Sprinkle came from, and some of his teammates are here tonight, to Millikin University in the mid and late 1950s, where basketball was king. They practiced at Old Gym, which is still here on campus. And then they played their games in First Kittner Gym, where Decatur High School played. I don't know, some of you guys might know, sat 4,000 people, I would assume. And then that wasn't big enough. They built a new high school, MacArthur High School, just west, because it was bigger, and they had to play there. People watched, people enjoyed, and as I walked around the room tonight, they said, "You should have seen Mickey play the game." He was something. Mickey once scored 38 points in a game. He was a 3-year starter at a time when there weren't 3-year starters at Millikin University because the competition was so thick. He one year made 37 of 40 free throws. I don't know if I read that right. 37 of 40 free throws, including 20 in a row. He practiced often with members of the Harlem Globetrotters and had a relationship with many of them. He played professionally in Europe, was being scouted by then the Atlanta Hawks of the NBA, but he hurt his back while playing professionally in Europe and didn't quite make it that far, but he made it darn far. Mickey Sprinkle was a scoring machine for the Big Blue basketball team. He not only racked up more than 1,000 points, mainly from what now would be three-point range, but he also consistently nailed his free throws, finishing his sophomore year third in the nation in free throw percentage. But if you talk to Mickey, he's also proud of his defense. He learned to play defense, playing against those guys on the Harlem Globetrotters. He took pride in it, and he's proud of it. You don't get many press clippings for defense. So I'm glad, it's nice to hear someone that has pride in that. Although he had a basketball scholarship to Colorado, Drake, and the University of Illinois, and was on his way to Boulder, Colorado to play for the Buffaloes until I think his father stepped in, and he may tell you that story here in a minute. A campus visit and a meeting with the basketball coach and dean of our business school at the time convinced Sprinkle and his family that Millikin was a place for him. We hope he is as happy as with his choice as we are with the choice of him coming here. President White, I am pleased to present the accomplishments of Mickey Sprinkle, class of 1958, as worthy for his induction into the Millikin Athletic Hall of Fame.
Thank you. Thank you for all being here. It's been a long time since I've been back to this campus, and it's a real pleasure. Before we get into the meat of what I'm going to say, I would, in fact, like to introduce you very briefly to my wonderful family and friends sitting at table number 14. My wife and friend for over pretty close to 30 years now, Joan. Two of my daughters, we'll start with the youngest one first, flew out here today from Virginia just for this. And my second daughter Deanne, who also flew out just today from Seattle, Washington. Two gentlemen sitting there that I played basketball with at Centralia, Illinois. And I would prefer if you not talk to them after it's over, because let's keep it what I'm saying, okay? And sitting next to them has been a longtime friend of mine, United States Senator Roland Burris, who I grew up with and who was one tremendous halfback in high school and went on to Southern Illinois University. And I'm very honored to have you fellas there. And Patty, I don't know how you have stayed with Mr. Jones there, but God bless you too, okay? I can only think of something like is happening tonight to some of you sitting out there. It's already happened, and to these fine gentlemen that were up here before me, and to the lady that I met a moment ago that's going to be coming up next. It's a journey. I don't know any other way to explain it. First of all, in a journey, you have to enjoy what you're doing, or it's not a good journey. And this, for me, was a very, very good journey. In the 4th grade, at a little school in Watson, Illinois, which is just south of Effingham, Illinois, at that time a 3-year high school, the phone rang. Now, I know none of you in here remember the 3 longs and 2 shorts. It was the principal of the high school, 3-year high school, knowing Winter Road, and said to my father, who was working at Sears and Roebuck, "Mike, we got a problem tonight. We're playing Beecher City. We got 7 boys on the team, on the high school team, and 3 of them have the flu. Would Mickey be interested, 4th grade, in playing on the high school team tonight?" Well, for all you fathers, I don't need to tell you what the answer was, okay? So rapidly and quickly, and to this day I never know how, my mother put together a uniform for me, and I played in that game. And before the game, the coach said to the other 4 teammates, "Here's what I want you to do. You go out here and you play your regular game, like you would normally play the game. Mickey, here's what I want you to do. This black line over here, there's a black line over there, there's a basket up here. I want you to run back and forth between these 2 lines." And he said to the other 4 players, when the guy finally gets tired of chasing Mickey back and forth, throw the ball to him, because he always makes the basket. They threw the ball to me 3 times that night. I made 2 baskets. We won the game 13-11. I was the high scorer. That was the start of the journey. That night, for some reason, I've always been told the man was a traveling salesman who was astonished to hear that a 4th grader was playing on the high school team. But regardless, he was from Centralia, Illinois. And he stopped and he said, "I have to see this." And he came to the basketball game and he saw it. Now, the most amazing thing happened after that time. Centralia all of a sudden decided that they needed a second hardware store. And my mother and my father, who had 8th grade and high school educations, were brought to Centralia mysteriously. And they were put into a new hardware store. And I tagged along, and I was put onto the basketball team. True story. Freddie, Roland, and I played in grade school on the Tigers. I think our record in my 8th grade year was 33-1. Some school by the name of Mount Vernon, I don't know if they're still down there or not, but they beat us one time. And Craig and I were talking about this yesterday, about how in grade school in those years, you played so many games. I went on to high school and played for a short period of time under a very well-known mentor of basketball, and is still beloved today by many in the state of Illinois by the name of Arthur Trout. And the gymnasium in Centralia is named after Trout. Went on, and there was so much competition that you had to move up. And I never made the first 5 there until my last year in school, my senior year, which was not necessarily unusual. But during that period of time, there was an old beat-up gymnasium in Centralia called the Community Center. And I wanted to keep playing basketball in the summertime, primarily because I didn't have enough money to go to the swimming pool, which cost a dime in those days to get into it. So, you remember Freddie, right? So, I went over to the community center to play basketball. And guess who I met over there? I met about 10 to 12 to 15 fellows, 3 of whom played on the Harlem Globetrotters. Fred Pearson, Preacher McBride, Vernon Rush. And there was another fellow that I played with by the name of Bobby Joe Mason, perhaps you have heard of. Bobby Joe and I grew up together. Different sides of town, but we grew up together. And Bobby Joe also joined me that summer, or those 2 summers, at the community center. And when these guys got tired of playing, they would say, all right, you kids, come on over here. And they put one on one team and one on the other team. That's where I learned basketball. That's where I learned the art of basketball. That's where I learned the enthusiasm of entertaining people. That's where I learned how to relate to an audience of people that came out to watch me and my teammates play ball. It brought about pride, self-pride. We went on that year, and we had an exceptionally strong team. We were number 1 in the state for several weeks, as I recall. And unfortunately, right at the very end, I don't know what happened. I heard that 2 schools came together, and one of the schools, they changed their name to Pinckneyville. And I always thought they should be pink. And they beat us in the last game to go to the state tournament. So that's one of my losses in life. Now comes the heart of this story, the essence of this story, if you will. As Craig said, I was on my way to 3 different universities with scholarship. I loved Boulder, couldn't wait to get to Boulder. And one Saturday in August, my dear father came to me and said, Mickey? I said, yes, Dad. Get in the car. I said, where are we going, Dad? He said, Decatur. He was a man of a lot of words. And so I got in the car. I knew I'd better. And we came here to Decatur, right outside here, this street out here. I was telling Dr. White this afternoon this story. And a man was walking out, and my dad pulled up next to him, rolled down the window of the car, that was before they had automatic windows, and said, sir, my name's Sprinkle. And he said, yes. He said, I got a boy here in the back and can play basketball. He said, yes. He said, we're from Centralia. And all of a sudden the yes turned to, is that Mickey Sprinkle? And that was my encore to Millikin. Ralph Allen, the coach, probably moved as fast as I can ever remember him moving to get here to campus. I told Craig, 2 hours later, I had a scholarship, I had a job, and I had a place to live. In those days, things were a little bit more simple with the NCAA and the NAIA. And as Craig said, yes, I was fortunate. I got to play 3 years on the varsity. And at this time, I got a little bit yet to say, but at this time I want to take a moment and do something. I was pondering as I was sitting here at the table. Roger Lotchin nominated me, as the nominating committee knows. And Roger and I, during those years, were just about as close as two guys could be. He was our center, and he's in your Hall of Fame now, soon to be my Hall of Fame. He's sick, and he had to turn around yesterday and return to Chapel Hill, where he is a professor. And I don't know for sure the extent of this thing, but tonight when you go home, say a little prayer for him, okay? All right. The essence of Millikin is the heart, and it is the thing that made me what I am today. It took me away from the little Watsons and the little Centralias and the egotistical attitude of, hey, I'm so good and I'm this and I'm that, and it brought me into the world of reality. And this was not just on the basketball court. This was in the classroom. This was with people like Dean Smith, who was the head of the business department, and I relied upon him to guide me, and he got me a job with Procter & Gamble when I left here. When the Korean War was just getting over and all of the people were coming back, and guys who were eligible for the draft like myself, we were going to be drafted, and these large companies didn't want to hire us and waste money on us in their training programs. He got me a job with Procter & Gamble. Dr. Gage, God bless her soul, she called me in class one day and said, Mickey, you don't speak very well. And I looked at her kind of funny, and she said, I can't figure it out. She said, there's a southern accent, there's a hillbilly accent, and she says, I don't know what that other accent is. And so she worked with me for 1 entire year. And I still don't speak too well, but I'm a little bit better. And Dr. Bell, who right down here, oh no, I guess back there now, isn't it? That building back there, had her room, and the night before, I stood outside, and I've never told anyone this, and maybe close your ears. I stood there pondering, you know, I wonder if I could get in that window and steal that test. Obviously I didn't, and obviously I'm glad. But anyway, I went in, I took the 3-hour test. I was the first one to leave the room after about 25 minutes. I got back to the fraternity house across the street, and we had one phone in there, and the house mother, Mrs. Graham, said, Mickey, I was upstairs getting ready to go to basketball practice. She said, Mickey, there's a woman on the phone by the name of Dr. Barron. And I said, okay. And I went, she said, Mickey, could you stop by my office on the way to basketball practice? And I said, certainly. So I put my tennis shoes around my neck, thinking maybe this would get me a little bit higher grade. And I went in, and she says, Mickey, you are such a nice young man. But she said, you know, you're not going to make an accountant. There's no way. And I said, did I not do good on my test? And she said, Mickey, you got the worst grade I've ever given. She said, you got a 9. So help me. So that moved me into another field of business, which was more along the lines of marketing, and that comes Dr. Gaston, who was really instrumental. I didn't like him very much, and he didn't like me very much. But he was really, really, really instrumental, and he still is today in a business that I run that does millions and millions of dollars every year, and marketing and the technology that we are confronted with today in the field of marketing and social media and everything else, I would never have been able to understand and comprehend it if it had not been for the teaching and the instruction that I received here at Millikin from this man, Dr. Gaston. God bless his soul. I left here. I then went to work for Procter & Gamble. I went into the military. I was fortunate enough to become a cryptographer, and top secret, and it cost me clearances, and NATO clearances, ended up in Europe. And there was a man there, the last man I'm going to name, Mr. Guignal, beautiful, older French gentleman who was starting up a professional basketball team in Poitiers, France. And he came to the post, and Colonel John Williams was our post commander, and he wanted to be promoted to brigadier general, and he was just about ready to retire, so he's doing everything in his power to improve French-American relations. And so he said, this is an idea. I'll put an American boy on a French team down there, and maybe that'll help us out. And that's what I got started, as Craig pointed out, in professional basketball. I played there for 1 year. My contract was purchased by another professional team, an A team in France, and I was one of the first American ball players to play professional basketball in Europe, and had a wonderful time and traveled the entire continent. Saw so many places, enjoyed so many things. Never did learn the French language, and the French kid, well, I won't tell you the words that they learned about me, but they learned a few words about me, and that was it. And that's my story, and that's my journey, and that journey ends here tonight because of you folks. Thank you very, very much.